Well, welcome back to the Cordell Cordell and Men's Divorce podcast and videocast. I'm Scott Trout, CEO and Managing Partner of Cordell Cordell. And as always, we continue to bring you the latest information as it relates to COVID-19 and its continuing and lasting effect on all issues of family law before, during, and after divorce. And so today I'm joined by Drew Williams in St. Louis, office of Cordell Cordell. Welcome, Drew.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Sure. And, before we get started, there's a lot to talk about. As always, as a disclaimer that this isn't an attorney-client relationship through this video or podcast. And really, this isn't to be taken as advice either, because each of your circumstances, your cases are unique, and the facts of every case may dictate a different response in terms of advice. So as you know, avid listeners, as you all are, you know that I always continue to say this, and really take notes, use this as some talking points to take to your attorney. And if you need an attorney and you want a consultation, we're available at Cordell Cordell at 866-DADS-LAW, or you can find us on the web at cordellcordell.com. We're available via telephone, virtual, and in some locations where health is first in our priority and it's available, we can do it in person, we're available. So check us out on the web, cordellcordell.com. So Drew, let's talk and start off as we always do when we get to the Cordell attorneys from around the country. Guys watching and listening really want to know what's going on in Missouri, what the status of the courts are in the St. Louis metro area.
So things are looking better. We're gradually opening up here. It depends on what county you're in and how the coronavirus has affected that part of the state. I was actually just in court yesterday in Jefferson County, which is a little more rural county here in Missouri, where we were able to get in, have an in-court appearance on a motion for temporary custody and able to move a case forward. So that was really nice. In some of the areas with a little bit higher population, such as St. Louis County, again, we are gradually opening up. They are initiating sort of a phase in where there's different phases and different things happening in those phases. So for example, in St. Louis County, I believe we're in phase one right now, where we still are only doing critical things in court. A couple interesting things, for example, in St. Louis County, we're having a town hall meeting with attorneys and judges actually this afternoon, where they're going to begin to provide us more information on what it's going to look like as far as the landscape on getting into court, being able to get things done and move cases forward.
Yeah, it's important, I've always said in almost every one of these is that, we use the word closed. And for many guys that are sitting out there, they think that they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. They certainly have no relief in court available. And we know that not to be the case, as we've talked to attorneys from, up east, down south and west and north. We see there are variances, obviously, city by city and state by state, but, guys are sitting at home and, with 33 plus million unemployed, we'll get new numbers again tomorrow. We know that the curve in terms of the increase is going down, but still staggering amount of unemployed. And so guys are sitting there thinking, should they put off that meeting with an attorney? And that is a critical question, because, they think, well, I can't come into the office, and so therefore I shouldn't do anything. But there are ways that they can do it. And don't you think that they should be seeking out counsel, at least just to get some answers to the questions that they have?
Sure. What I can say, there really is no reason to delay or wait. So if you think you're in a position where you're ready to move forward with a case, whether that be a divorce or a motion to modify, go ahead and start to call attorneys, start to try to have consultations. Many firms such as ours are doing consultations via phone, as well as over Zoom. I think maybe in some areas we're doing in-person consultations as well when appropriate. So there's really no reason to wait, and in particular, there are certain situations where you might actually be negatively affected if you do wait, such as a motion to modify situation. If, let's say, you've been laid off or furloughed and you need to decrease your child support, you need to get that motion on file, because in a lot of jurisdictions, you can have that relief be retroactive to your filing date, and that's going to affect how that case plays out.
I take it, I always say, I give the relationship and the dynamic is doctors and lawyers. If I'm sick and obviously if I'm not feeling well, I'm picking up the phone immediately. I'm not going to wait it out and see if I get better. It's the same thing. You've got to treat this as a medical problem that you want relief immediately, or you want advice. And albeit getting some opinions is important. Now we have telephone consults with attorneys where you can go ahead with doctors, where you can get medical advice from, them virtually. And I think that's the same thing with clients, where they really should be thinking about and focusing on really meeting with their lawyer and getting the answers that they need. And I think that's a huge recommendation is to seek that out, because I think at least you have answers. It doesn't mean you have to take any steps beyond the consultation. But simply empowering yourself with the information to make the right decisions. So that's really a good point. And I think that brings up, one of the mistakes that we talked about in one of my town halls about 4 weeks ago. We talked about the 5 mistakes guys make, and one of them is moving out. What should guys be thinking about doing? I mean, education, consultation, what should they do before they move out?
Yeah, and so with everything going on in the world right now, this is a very interesting time. Couples are potentially quarantined together when they're going through this divorce process. And so if you are considering moving out, maybe tensions are rising at home, there are a lot of things you want to take into consideration, and it may not always be the best idea. Even if in the short term, it's going to make your life potentially less stressful. If you have children, it could raise issues as to custody, how often you're going to be able to see your kids. It could also raise issues with your finances. If you're moving out, now let's say you're the primary wage earner in your household. Well, now you may have to take care of 2 different, a mortgage and maybe a rent, different utilities. And so on top of paying an attorney going through this process, your expenses are going to be doubled. So if at all possible, in most situations, it's going to be beneficial to stay in the house and kind of try to wait it out, speak with an attorney, and let that attorney know your situation. Let that attorney know, okay, here are the issues, here are the reasons why I'm thinking X, and that attorney is going to have some good feedback for you based on your jurisdiction and whatever's going on with the facts of your case.
For some dads out there, the coronavirus pandemic has become a pretext to limit access to their children. Other dads have been pushed out of key decisions affecting their children's lives. If you're one of those dads, Cordell & Cordell is here for you, as always, but with expanded services. We can meet you in person or by video conference on weekdays, evenings, or weekends. Our goal is to step up our service to meet your needs now.
So, one of the things, obviously, guys move out at the spur of the moment. It's usually gotten an argument, I've got to get away, I'm done. Should they, and one of the things they don't think about is money.
Right.
They don't think about custody. Are those 2 things that they really, really should take some time to think about before, or even they've moved out, they may want to think about moving back in?
Yeah, like I said, let's say you move out of the house and you're going through a divorce and there's no custody order yet, right? Maybe you and your spouse are amicable and you're able to work things out, but maybe you're not. And now you're in a situation where you're butting heads as to how often you're going to be seeing your children. And now maybe a couple weeks have gone by and you're not spending the time with your children that you want to be spending. And on top of that, with courts, they are open, but there is a delay. There is a lag right now with getting things done. So kind of getting back to the first point, it's important that you get in and you get things moving immediately. But on top of that, even once you do get in, there's going to be a lag time. So the more that you can try to have these things figured out before leaving the house, if that is what you're going to do, the better you're going to be.
And, the guys have moved out a lot, and they've come to me and said, I've made that mistake. I already moved out without really considering the consequences, because every action has a consequence. And obviously one of them could be, especially during COVID, as we talk about staying involved with your kids and understanding what the schedule may be, trying to get an agreement with someone you're already arguing with. And it's one of the main reasons you probably are getting divorced is the lack of communication skills or, commonality and understanding of what, is appropriate. How do guys, is that something they need to figure out a way to stay involved while they're moved out?
So if you're moved out of the house, yes, you do want to figure out ways to stay involved. And let's say for whatever reason, maybe because of the coronavirus, the kids are better in the marital residence with your spouse. Well, potentially start to reach out about coming over on certain days to take over parenting responsibilities. Maybe on a Tuesday night, you're going to go over and you're going to sort of be the sole parent as far as making dinner, taking care of the kids, putting them to bed. With the coronavirus, it also kind of presents some unique opportunities to further be involved in things such as your kids' education. If they're doing homeschooling, beginning to get involved with that if you haven't already, assisting with homework or whatever else is going on. But yeah, that is, if you're out of the house, that's certainly something you're going to want to do, as well as if you're in the house with your wife, just kind of having, like I said, maybe different days where you're taking the lead or your spouse is taking the lead, or having different duties that you're going to be primarily responsible for while you're in the house with your spouse going through this divorce process.
And I think, you're on notice and you're kind of their eyes watching you, even if when you're in the house or out, if, the marriage is kind of on the way to being broken and you haven't consulted with a lawyer, but you're going to, or she is, that she's gathering evidence about every move you make. And so it is about, as you suggest, staying involved in their lives, especially being active with this distance learning, or, whatever it is, putting them to bed, reading them stories, just staying involved, but keep a journal. I think I've said that many times. What are you doing every day? A day in the life, write it down. Contemporaneous notes. That's always a big thing, because if you get caught in a he said, she said wins. And you want some sort of backup proof that said, look, I wrote this down every day. I kept a journal of what I did and what she did. And so what she's saying is just not accurate. So I think that's key. But more importantly, I think when you want to stay in the house, and that is, we talked about again, and one of the mistakes that guys make is catching themselves in an argument that turns perhaps to that order of protection.
Sure.
That's a huge deal, isn't it?
It really is a big deal. As I tell a lot of my clients, these orders of protections in family court, they really are one of the most important pleadings in family court, but unfortunately they are also one of the most abused pleadings as well. And so if you are in a situation where you are staying in the house with your wife going through quarantine, you want to make sure that you're very cognizant of not putting yourself in a position where you may be giving your wife a basis to file for an order of protection in the event she does want you out of the house. And so tips for doing that, just making sure you're very direct with your communication, maybe not be as colorful as some may be while they are arguing, or just trying to simply avoid arguments altogether. As well, if there is an issue in the house, and you feel like maybe your spouse is manipulating a situation to try to, again, have some sort of basis to file an order of protection, you'd be the one to call the police and say, hey, these are my concerns. This is what's going on. I just want to make note of it. If you have an attorney-client relationship, call your attorney, see what he or she says, let them know the situation, because especially at the outset of a divorce case, if there's an unnecessary order of protection, you might find yourself spending, a good deal of money defending against that. And it's sort of a red herring from what may be the real issues in the case that we need to deal with in the divorce.
Yeah. I think we talked to a couple of weeks ago, Jonathan in Utah, and then Rosario in our San Diego office, and they kind of had the same suggestion. I think this is a good one, especially when we're talking about decisions to stay in the house. We're sheltering in place for the time being, albeit some states are starting to roll open. Does this present a good opportunity for guys to really think about having ongoing, meaningful discussions about trying to resolve custody and money?
Especially if you're on good terms with your spouse, I think it does present an opportunity to have those conversations. At the very least, let's say as far as custody, at the very least, you're going to know your spouse's position. Okay. So maybe you don't have an agreement, but you're going to have some intel that you can go back and speak with your attorney about and say, okay, this is what my spouse presented as a potential custody schedule. What are your thoughts? Where can we go from here? And as far as, working with your spouse, potentially the quarantine presents, another opportunity to as a place to show that you can work with your spouse, right? In a custody case, legal custody might be an issue, right? Your ability to work with your spouse to make decisions in the best interest of your children. And kind of flipping the situation on its head, it can provide a good opportunity to show, hey, I'm trying to work through these situations with my wife. We have, these difficult times, and there's all these sort of issues that come with these times, and being able to work through that with your wife can actually maybe be a benefit to your case.
Yeah. We, in all of our podcasts and our town halls that we do on Thursdays, we often talk about, the legal stuff, and we talk about what you should be doing now to further your case and what positions you should be taking. And I think what we overlook, especially during COVID, is telling guys, hey, take care of yourself, and that's kind of important as you begin to enter something that is so stressful, right?
Yeah, mental health is so important. And if you're in a situation where, let's say, you are going through the divorce process, you've spoken with your attorney, you decided it's going to be best for you to stay in your house, at least short term, with your spouse, you really want to make sure you stay on top of taking care of yourself, exercise, get proper sleep, stay as close as you can with the routines and habits that you're used to. Because, divorce and any family law proceeding can be taxing. So you really want to make sure that you are prioritizing yourself and your health and taking care of yourself, because when you're at your best, that's when you're going to be able to best be a parent and address other issues going on in your case.
Yeah, and you want to be able to actively, meaningfully participate in the prosecution and the defense of your case, no doubt.
Sure.
And so I know I've talked to someone the other day, and I said, it's okay to go seek just to talk to someone. They're not open. Go virtually. It's okay. I mean, we're all getting used to this Zoom technology, and sometimes we feel like we're in the same room just because it's so real and it's becoming the one thing that we're using. And so I think that's the one thing, guys, especially men who want to be tough and strong and they don't need it and they can handle it, is go seek help and just have a conversation. That's not something that's going to be used against you, to have just someone to talk to about the stress, anxiety you're going through, especially tagging along COVID-19. What a disaster, to put this on top of, a family law issue, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And certainly it's not something that's going to be held against you. If anything, it can be used to show that you are aware, right? And you're trying to better yourself for your kids or for whatever the situation may call for. It's certainly not something, in my opinion, to be ashamed of. If you do feel like you need to reach out and get help, again, making sure that you take care of yourself and you have yourself in as best of a position to take care of all the responsibilities that you need to take care of.
Yeah. And it's the guys are listening. Well, I don't know where to turn to. So, when you're thinking about talking to a lawyer, especially, we have all kinds of resources we can hook guys up with in terms of counseling. So reach out to a Cordell & Cordell office near you. We'll try to find the resources that you need to make sure not only can we answer your legal problems, but some of the things you just need to talk to someone to make sure in counseling, we'll make sure we get that information to you. So good stuff today, Drew. Thanks for filling guys in and kind of giving some tips and ideas on what to do during the shelter in place and how they can continue to advance their case. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
So as always, we continue to bring this information to you on a daily basis, covering all topics that we can in family law. Tune into our virtual town hall on Thursdays, where you get the opportunity to join in live, ask your question live of our panel, and get answers. So looking forward to that. And then each week, we'll devote our podcast to answering the questions that you've submitted online that you want answered as well. So continue to tune into that. Until next time, have a great week.